Step into realms where the heart takes flight, where strategy meets the edge of night. The Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast. Prepare your mind. Now be our guest.
Hello and welcome to the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast. Thank you so much, psyclithids, for joining us for the 20th episode of our show. I'm so excited that it's gotten this far. It feels like it's flying by, and I'm loving it. I'm loving all of the relationships I'm getting with you who are writing to me and talking to me on Instagram and through email, and just the cool people I've been able to meet. But with me here today is a few of the very cool people in my in real life group. We have Nate, Keegan, Kimothee, and Dustin, all members of my gaming group and longtime friends. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Okay, so we're going to do something fun today because it is our 20th episode. We are going to have an extravaganza. What the hell that means, we're about to find out, and we don't really know. But we decided to have an episode without a prompt, without a topic, and just chatter together as a group of people around the table, having a good time and talking about role-playing games. So I'm going to open up the floor and have whichever one of you wants to bring something up first about role-playing, and then let's just start from there.
I hit a 37.
The number 37?
Yeah, that's the AC. Does it hit?
That is the number of games that have failed because of chaotic characters.
Well, that's not too bad then. I mean, overall, universally in the whole world, that's the total number. I'll accept that. That seems reasonable.
I mean, maybe we've run several hundred games in our 25 years, so it might be, a pretty small percentage.
It's not terrible.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that's how many games have been destroyed by chaotic characters since we started this podcast 3 seconds ago.
Gosh.
That's a lot of games.
Universally speaking, worldwide, that's how many games fail every minute when you play chaotic characters.
Whoops. Sorry.
Pushing the ads out now.
Oh,
The failure is just an opportunity for a new beginning.
okay.
Wow.
So what do you? That's a good thing to talk about. Games that fail. That's something we've had a lot of experience with. We've had a lot of games that succeed, but we've had our fair share of games that have failed for one reason or another.
Well, especially, I think when we first started gaming, basically every week was a new game. Maybe you'd go a couple of weeks with a game, but I think we were fumbling our way through figuring out what works and what doesn't in terms of cooperative storytelling.
And what have we learned?
For myself, I think the biggest key to having an ongoing successful campaign is to, from the very beginning, tie the characters together in some way that cannot be broken by alignment, by morality, by whatever else that may be. One of my favorite ways of doing that is to make the characters family. Whether you're immediate family, brothers, sisters, parents, siblings gets a little bit tricky sometimes. Or I beg your pardon, parents, offspring gets a little tricky just because of the power dynamic.
Right.
But siblings is fantastic. Cousins are fantastic. I mean, people maybe marry into the family, whatever it ends up being. If you have that family bond, regardless of what else is going on, you are that much more likely to care about the other members of your party, and you're that much more likely to be willing to compromise and to sacrifice for their well-being.
Well, that's a very good point.
Agreed.
I think we have to consider the fact that, we have to define what failure is. Just because a game doesn't run for an extended period of time, I don't think intrinsically makes it a failure. But I think most of the games that I've enjoyed the most have run for, 10 to 20 to 100 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big jump.
I feel like if it failed, at least over half the party died.
See, I'm going to disagree. I think you can still have success even if
Over
the party. I bet you could have success even.
We have had
success even when literally every last member of the party died.
But that was also
what session were you at when that happened?
The final session.
Okay,
so
there
see-
you
Well,
go.
yeah, it's always
I'm just
going
gonna
to be the
say
last
this:
session.
if you're in
The whole
like the
party's
beginning
dead.
to mid, even pre-end, if half the party dies before you can even reach the finale, the game failed. That's my opinion on a failure.
It depends on the story, I would say.
Yeah,
I
think it depends
I
on the
think
story.
failure and success is based on did you successfully tell the story that you wanted to tell cooperatively? Did
Or
people
did the
have
PCs
fun
achieve
telling
what they
it?
were after, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's also
And maybe that was at the cost of their lives. I mean, you guys have told stories about a game that I wasn't in, that the elf game, that you did in fact achieve your goals, but at great personal cost.
Yeah, both of us died.
Yeah.
In some very final, not coming back from that kind of ways.
In some ways, that is kind of the ultimate hero's journey, to sacrifice your own life for what it is you're trying to achieve.
I know for me, when it comes to games that haven't necessarily like flown or have failed or whatever the case is, for me as a new GM, it's the preparation that I've had to learn. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not just something that Rob and Dustin are much better at this than I am, but the fly by the seat of your pants type of GMing is something that I struggle with majorly. And so to Nate's point, having characters that are closely tied together, that are not easy to motivate, but give me motivation for them, and having players that are bought in makes a huge difference. So for me, I've learned from games that haven't taken off that I have to kind of curate my games and make sure that I'm DMing for the right group, or that it's also the story that they want to tell at the same time. And so it's learning that cooperation from the other side of the screen as opposed to just on the side of the screen with the players.
Totally. Absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's a good conversation, I think, before. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about your session 0. That's a great conversation to talk about, both as a group and individually between each character and the DM, is what they want to accomplish in the game. Yeah. And Kimothee, I know for an example of this that you love the redemption arc, that talking through that with your DM before you get into it is going to make for a much cleaner sort of through line, and you're going to have situations that set you up to help tell that story in a way that aren't usually going to happen if it happens organically.
Exactly.
Or if you as the player try to sort of force it on the game in a way that the DM wasn't planning on.
I think I almost have to completely agree with the premise, Nate. When it comes to, when you have an idea for what you want to do as a character, it may be different from the type of story the GM is trying to tell. I think communicating that might be worthwhile. But at the beginning of a good game, I don't think the players, especially if you're starting at first level, really have a good idea of what they're trying to accomplish. I think that's the GM's opportunity to tell the nature of the world. And maybe it's 10, 20 sessions in before the players even have a real strong, okay, this is what we're here to do. This is how we're going to be the big damn heroes.
Sure, I think that is a valid style of play, but sometimes as a character, or sometimes as a player, you create a character knowing sort of where you want to take them. And I'm not talking in terms of like plot specifics, but just their personality a little bit, and the sort of arc that you want their story of growth to happen in. And I'm not saying that comes down to like super specifics that as a player you're telling the GM, here's what I want my character to do. You're just telling the GM before you ever get started that, like, say this is a character where I'm creating her really naive and really sort of optimistic, and I want to go through an experience where that gets destroyed, and then I get a chance to build it back up again. Like, you're not telling the DM how to create their world or how to create their story. You're just telling them that maybe this is a type of story that I'm interested in engaging with. And I think that most DMs will find a way to kind of work that into the overarching plot and story that they have planned.
Easier to do with smaller groups, but that does make more sense.
Here's another topic, another idea. Let's riff on for a minute. What do you guys think about the idea of players trying to surprise the DM?
Oh, I love it. I love every part of it.
No.
I want every surprise in the game because nothing's more flavored in the campaign if you're not being surprised, even if it's not like the DM needs to be also surprised because the story's never going to be what he wants exactly or whatever they actually plotted out because characters are always going to differ on their opinions.
But Keegan, I think there's a pretty drastic difference between the sort of exact details of the story surprising the DM because that's people making decisions like in split seconds. That's rolls of the dice deciding how things go. There's a lot of other factors. When you're coming into the game intending to surprise the DM, what you're engaging in is a very specific type of gaming that is adversarial between the players and the DM. And I'm not even saying that is always a bad thing. I just think that everybody involved in that needs to know exactly what they're getting into before you start that game, or there are going to be hurt feelings.
There's one.
What do you
thing-
really mean by surprising the players, though? Do you surprising the GM with an ability that you don't disclose in advance, or surprising the GM with a decision that they don't anticipate? I mean, those are two very different questions.
Yeah, I would say more story-based surprises. So avoiding plot hooks or trying to create their own level of plot that the DM didn't really intend, or just participating in ways that are going to change the story that the DM had intended to tell in the first place.
Okay. I was going to say, if it was like
it's
actual
not planned at all.
abilities, that's where my groan comes from.
Yeah, because like those kind of surprises, they're not kind of planned. That's more just like what the scenario brought up and then what my thoughts were on what the scenario brought to me.
I think it could be.
That would be a surprise in that scenario.
But I think there's other ways that it could go too. I mean, let's say you have a hostage situation, and as the party, your responsibility is kind of supposed to be saving the hostages, and instead you choose to fireball literally everybody.
Okay.
Killing
As
all
a
of the
GM,
hostages.
I love it. I love rolling with the punches. That makes a great. It may not be intended, and it's going to get tired overall eventually. But if there was a good in-character reason for that kind of a decision making, I love rolling with it and seeing where the cards fall.
So I would say less along that scenario, but let's say it is a hostage situation. We'll keep that same idea because it's been thrown out there. Maybe early on the DM said, well, this is a good based game. We're going to follow a certain set of rules, then choosing to constantly take character actions that are going to like move your characters more and more evil. Instead, I'm going to instead join with the terrorists and take hostages of my own. And of course, certainly those are decisions that can be made, but it goes against what the DM is expecting and would surprise them in ways, especially since they were thinking that we agreed upon a certain type of play.
Yeah, that just violates the social contract of the game, and that's that's adversarial, like you said. So I don't think that's ever going to be appropriate in any game. If the GM sets the tone and says, "Hey, this is a game that we're going to start here. Go where you want to go," and that decision gets made, that's one thing. But if it's very clear, good alignments only, this is the kind of story, it's a hero's journey, and then you go down that road, you're intentionally violating the inherent spirit of the game and the social contract of the game between the GM and the players at the beginning. So in my opinion, if that expectation is set, that's an unacceptable decision making on behalf of the players. And while I hesitate to say this, I don't even think that kind of decision making should be allowed.
So
it's direct violation.
We're agreeing that chaos is not allowed. Very good. Perfect. Understood. Glad you finally
that's what it was
definition.
doing. Okay.
Good job.
Okay. I mean, I definitely agree with that. If the DM's like, this is what I want the story to start out and go to, like, I don't want to like go against what the DM has because he already has a pretty good plot line for the beginning to get you engaged.
Well, and that's where the session zero comes from. If you absolutely want to play something else, then that's when you talk about it. Hey, I really wanted to do X. Okay, now me as a GM, I get an opportunity to say, well, that doesn't really work this time, or actually, I have a great idea for you, and work with it from there.
To step back, sorry, Dustin, go ahead.
I was going to say, surprising the GM in certain ways, non-alignment specific, but like with choices that aren't necessarily anticipated. That I think is a kind of a mixed bag for me. If it's not completely off base, it's actually kind of fun. I mean, one of the wonderful things about a collaborative storytelling game is to not know, even as the GM. I mean, yes, the dice, arbitrate certain things, and yes, the character decisions in the microcosm will change things a little bit. But when player decision making does change in a substantial way, not necessarily in an alignment, but with a decision or a course of action that the GM did not anticipate, I think that can be a lot of fun if the GM is, for the GM and for the rest of the group, if the GM is willing to just kind of roll with that. It does definitely require more work, especially, for newer GMs, or if they have a specific dungeon area planned and then the decision bypasses that entirely. I can appreciate the frustration therein. But I think that can be very, very rewarding as well, to give the players that level of freedom to explore creative alternative approaches.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think a DM should always be expecting some sort of surprise. The ones that always intrigue me and happen in every fucking game I've ever ran is the NPC that I didn't think was cool enough to even need a freaking name. And then all of a sudden it's the party's favorite NPC, and they're
Love
turning him into
them.
a god or a leader of another country and keeping him around for the entire damn game.
Hello, Ralph.
Yeah, exactly.
Relk, the
So those
one-armed
kind of
drow.
surprises I like. I think they're a lot of fun, because players will just latch on to things that you hadn't intended to be so impactful or so important in the story. Just like they'll also bypass things that you had intended to be very impactful and very important to the story. Okay, here's another interesting topic. Let's roll on to this one. DMing style. So as a DM, do you prefer, or do you think your best games are those that you have improv'd from the beginning or planned from the beginning?
Oh, planned from the beginning, bar none, no question. Improv in the moment, plan from the beginning.
I have to agree with that one. I love having a good set of rails that I can play in myself at the same time as a GM, that I have story points and things like that I get to. The players help me get there. They drive how that gets there, but I have to know where I'm going. Otherwise it becomes this convoluted web of just absolutely nothing.
So I think I could go either way. I do think that most of my successful stories are those that have started with a bit of a plan. Although there are a couple notable exceptions that really didn't. The whole idea was just, let's create our characters and start playing. Search for the Hidden Scepter was one of those. Everything about that game was random.
Planned that though. After the first session 0, you did get into a lot of planning. That wasn't completely off the seat of your pants.
Well, sure, but that's not really what I'm talking. I'm talking about games that start improv or start planned.
We'll be right back.
Hey, psyclithids, if you love the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast and want to help keep it alive, there are a ton of ways you can support the show. Join us on Patreon for exclusive content like NPC character sheets, early access to new products, and even first looks at DM's Assistant app. You can also grab gaming-inspired merch on the Etsy shop, Games for Games, or pick up one of my books, The Player's Handbook to Real Life, or Session 0, the DMG to Writing Great Campaigns in any system. And even if financial support isn't in the cards for you, you can still help by sharing the show, leaving reviews, or introducing new players to our community. Links are always in the show notes, and thank you for being the heart of our adventure.
Well, that's a very unique situation. And for the psychlithids listening, I mean, really, that was just, you didn't even have a game idea until the characters were generated, and they were generated in a completely random fashion. But then you did generate the game from the characters. So I think if you want to focus on that element, I think generating a story around the characters you have is the biggest benefit of a Session 0, and not having too much of your campaign figured out as far as overall plot until you know the actors in the story, the characters who are playing the game. So knowing what that is in advance, I think, is very beneficial.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Definitely knowing what you're dealing with is always going to make it easier.
Well, and lets you tailor things more specifically to where your characters have sort of told you that they want to go.
It's easier to motivate somebody that you already know, hey, they want to do this.
I mean, they basically created a character to tell you what their motivation is.
Yep.
Now you take that motivation and you go write a story with it.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
I have a question for the group.
Yes, go.
What is your favorite game moment?
Ooh,
Favorite
Too many.
I know that's a hard
moments.
one.
So I can start because I've been thinking about this for a while.
Okay.
So when I started gaming 15 years ago, it legitimately was on a Saturday morning. Dustin woke me up and he hands me the player's handbook, the 3.5 player's handbook to, I think it's chapter 7, that is combat. The fact that I still remember this. And he says, you might want to read this before you play your character. And oh, by the way, here's her character sheet. He built the character for me. And this was about, an hour and a half before everybody else was showing up. So
That's a lot of preparation time there.
I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea how to play this character. And he says, don't worry about it. You're going to sit right next to me. I'll help you through the whole thing. So he rolled for me this cleric of Palor, who to this day is like still probably one of my most treasured characters ever. And it was the defining moment for me where I sat down and I was like, I love this game, is when the party was coming into this large cavern. They were fighting a lich. They were rescuing my character to introduce me into the game. And I rolled a 19 on the dice to turn the lich, which I shouldn't have been able to do. And that for me was like the moment where I was like, I fucking love this game. And I was hooked.
Yeah, those special moments where you accomplish something that doesn't seem like it should be possible, whether it's through the roll of a die, whether it's through careful planning and setting up a scenario where you're swinging way above your weight class and you somehow manage to succeed. Those are special moments in a game.
I have a similar one that you just reminded me of, Kimothee. So this is one that I think infuriated the rest of the group because I had a character who had ultimate hubris who was named Rokad.
Oh,
And
God.
this was in, I believe this was in a Rise of the Runelords campaign. Or one of those in that same kind of area. And there was a boss that was flying in the air with all these defenses and all these abilities. And I remember Rokad he was coming off of a couple of combats that were not difficult for him. So he basically did the big hold my beer moment. I got this. You guys can just sit on the sidelines. And the number of natural 20s I rolled in that combat, I think I rolled more 20s than things that weren't 20s. And we got to the point where I needed a natural 20 to jump high enough in the air to even attack the thing. And then I needed a natural 20 to hit. And then I somehow still confirm a critical. And managing to take that out, while that was infuriating for the party, and I was expecting to fail in that, having a moment of just ultimate badassery, superhero kind of thing was pretty awesome.
That was great. And it's still something we talk about to this day. Everybody says Rokad, and it's a chorus of Rokad.
See, it's funny. I think my favorite moments, and maybe this is personality type, are actually almost the opposite. I mean, they still involve success, but the moments where you make sacrifices as a character, whether it's dying or giving up some immeasurable amount of sort of who you are, I mean, whatever that ends up sort of being, I think those are the moments that speak to me the most.
Okay, so tell us one.
Okay, so there's literally the first one that comes to mind is a character I had. Rob was running the game. It was set during the time of Troubles in Faerun, and I was playing a druid shifter named Solastria, and I forget. It's been so long now. I forget some of the exact details, but she ended up taking on basically sort of a blessing from Shar to enable her to continue casting through the shadow weave during a moment when I think Mystara had died and the entire weave was shut down, and so she took on the shadow casting in order to help the party sort of get through the absolutely necessary next step. But in the process of that, basically ended up making sort of the ultimate sacrifice, not because she died, but because her character basically was kind of completely taken over by this shadowy aspect that Shar had sort of built into the Shadow Weave.
Right.
Almost like a taint, a madness,
Yeah.
slowly creeping madness.
Yeah, not unakin to the Wheel of Time, actually.
Yeah.
And so in making that sacrifice, I mean, she sort of made the sacrifice knowing that the end result was going to be a completely unplayable character. It was basically akin to a character death. And I don't know, there's something almost ineffable about those moments in game where you make a choice that you know is going to have incredibly extreme consequences for you and your character, but are what is going to lift the rest of your party up. And it's in those moments of sacrifice that I think you find something truly sublime.
So that
I love those moments.
that moment that took place, I would say, not as a player, but as a DM, was one of my most proud moments. Because, and I've referenced that specific moment in my book. I've talked about it on other podcasts and this podcast. But there was something about the entire way that you, myself, Chris, and I believe Kevin were the people who were playing in that game. The way that we were telling that story together in that moment wove itself together so beautifully that I remember I was reading this description of what was happening with the character, and I look up at the table and I see these three grown men wiping tears from their eyes, totally invested in the emotion of a powerful moment. And I agree, those are the moments for me that stand out, that make this game so powerful. So yeah, that's a great one. I'm really glad you brought it up.
I love that moment. And the fact that continues to permeate in like our mythos, our Favorinian mythos. It is something that we talk about constantly, is this elf game that I am so jealous.
Oh, that's even another one.
Oh, no. I guess that's right.
This is Time of Troubles.
This is
game.
Time of Troubles. Elf game's another one.
Yep.
But like, it makes
also a tear-jerking game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell you,
it makes me jealous to not have been in those games.
It's those moments of sacrifice that you sort of, even you as a player, find out what your character is capable of. Like, I mean, it's because isn't that sort of the defining characteristic of any human being? Isn't necessarily what you're willing to do in life. It's what you're willing to die for. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for. And that is what defines who you are as a person.
I think you really touched on something really meaningful, because as you're talking about this, Nate, I think of at least two other examples where I had a character who made a major sacrifice, who eventually made the character unplayable, like you said, but in so doing, really helped the party and created a story. Well, in one instance, didn't help the party at all, but the story still concluded in a bad guys win kind of way, but it ended up working out. That was still very, very meaningful. And you look back, and that is some of the most fun at the table I've ever had.
And to me, those are the moments that are why I continually profess over and over and over again that in my games I want death to be so meaningful, because it is the most meaningful times I've ever had in game are all surrounding times when death was meaningful, which is why I don't want it to be glossed over. I don't want it to be a snap of the fingers and a character's back to life. But but I mean, there are opportunities for other things too, like being able to continue telling a story because one character is super important to it, and their death could derail the game from going forward. So I can appreciate that too. But I do think, like especially in terms of it was a moment of sacrifice, it's really important for death to matter.
Well, but I think somehow even in those other moments where you have a character who maybe is so vital that they can't be just removed from the game, that I think that becomes a whole nother quest line. So say they die, now the rest of the party has to figure out how to get them back.
Yes.
Whether that's a relatively simple go and buy a diamond worth 5,000 gold and powder it, or whether that means a trip to find a soul gem or down to the hells, or I mean, whatever that ends up sort of implying, I think even that death can still have meaning in how it becomes reversed.
Right.
Exactly.
Recovering a hag's heartstone.
Oh, hey, now.
I'm not so deep in my gaming because I have never had that intense moment of like, oh my gosh, this is where we could fucking end it all right now. But my best gaming moment was when I was just doing very in-character stuff, basically. This is in my cousin's game, Jack. I was playing a ice giant barbarian as a berserker. And basically, at this point, we had just basically finished the dungeon. We had kind of just wiped the whole place, got what we needed. We finished the quest, got our money. We were now doing research into basically what our main campaign was. So we went to the main library in our city. And I, as being an ice giant, I don't have very high intelligence. So being in a library is just kind of like, what am I doing here? I'm looking at a bunch of just dusty little things for no reason. So I decided, I'm like, you know what? I need to build some sort of complex here because I'm like, I have no intelligence, but I'm like, I need to be able to engage in the scenario. So I'm like, where is the Ice Giants history book? Their history book was apparently like 12 pages long. So I take that book and I look at it. I'm like, this all seems very accurate, of course. 12 pages, immaculate. That is just Ice Giant history in its making. I'm going to progress this Ice Giant history even further. I'm going to take this book and write even more history. I'm going to let you know what the actual situation is over here in our lands. The guy who was running the place did not agree with me taking the book. So I was like, look, guy, I don't care. I'm going to take the book. And he's like, well, I'm going to call the guards. I'm like, so I had to roll a check for this. It was a strength check. I grabbed his head and I just hucked him. Just hucked him across the library. I didn't care for any more argument. I'm an ice giant. I just want my history book to write more history for the ice giants. People need to know what we're about. So I'm like, no, I grabbed it. I got an 18 on the roll. So I hucked this dude across the freaking library. And Jack's like, okay, so he lands into like 3 different shelves. There's a giant mess. There's like 3 other people coming over trying to clean it up. And you just walk out the building. And I'm like, this is the greatest moment in my game of history. I have perfected being a barbarian ice giant. And I'm about to go write the history of ice giant barbarianism.
And how many pages did that book end up being?
We didn't get too much farther because COVID-19 hit, and then the game had to end because we just couldn't meet anymore, and people moved away. So the game ended prematurely.
That's
and
sad.
I was very, very sad. His name was Olati, and I really wanted to keep going and just annihilate monsters because I could just freeze everything. But it was just one of those moments in gaming when I can just really be in the character and actually enjoy being this character. Like, very, very much like, even though it was just like a weird small thing, like this is what we call
roleplay.
cosplay, whatever you want to call it. You know, I would totally have dressed up for this whole scenario. Been like, dude, look at me.
Keegan, I kind of want to see you dressed as an ice
Oh,
giant.
I will do
now.
it to the get up.
I think you make a pretty good ice giant, actually.
I mean, Nate, you're taller than me, man. You could be a nice giant.
He doesn't have your stature.
I don't think I have quite the build for that one.
Okay, so on the other side of this coin of favorite moments in game, how about as either a DM or as a player, what are some of the worst mistakes you've ever made, or some of the things in game you regret the most, or something along those lines?
You have the answers for this.
Do I?
Oh, if you don't regret some of these decisions you've made in games that Rob has run, I don't know who has. Or I've run for that matter.
I mean, being victimized by the big bad evil guys, I mean, yes, I can regret those. But also they make great stories. So no, at the same time, I can't. Some of my other favorite moments are those moments.
Honestly, I haven't had a moment yet where I'm like, this is the greatest mistake of my life in this game. So I can't really give you a huge mistake. other than like maybe I failed a check when I was playing someone else's character. That was a huge mistake when I was playing Joe, who has high intelligence, and I rolled a 1 and he was stupid for like 3 rounds. But beyond that, I haven't had like a really like, oh my gosh, I have regretted this whole scenario moment.
I think the moments that I regret the most are actually the moments where I wasn't role-playing hard enough, if that makes any sense, where something happened in game that role-playing is a lot like improv. Like when you're doing some sort of improv, you're never supposed to say no. Right. You're only supposed to say yes. Yeah. So my biggest regrets are moments where I didn't just sort of accept what was happening and keep role playing with it. I sort of took myself out of it because I didn't, for a variety of reasons, didn't like what was happening. There's one I can think of specifically, and it was a long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
No. Only if we were playing the dark side. It was a very short-lived game. I think Kevin might have actually been running it. I was playing some barbarian that basically was built straight out of the Book of Vile Darkness, and somehow
Phylock?
No. It very, very shortly. I think maybe a session, maybe 2, something like that. And we ran into, I forget, I think maybe it was a demon that had a fear aura, and I rolled a 1 on the will save against the fear aura. And just, I was so unhappy about having this character who is built to be this insane sort of badass running in fear that I let it take me out of the storytelling. And in retrospect, I think it would have been so much more interesting had I been able to just keep saying yes and to somehow figure out what he would have done with that. So, I mean, the role says he's running in fear. Like, what does that look like? How does he act when he is running in fear?
Does he get around?
Or maybe there was trauma that was directly brought up by this specific individual, that you're not afraid of most things, but this is your Achilles heel, and kind of dig into why in the story for that would have been kind of interesting.
Sure. I mean, even without making it sort of the focus of the story in any sort of fashion, just accepting that literally everyone can be afraid. Unless you have some sort of God over your shoulder saying, nope, you're not afraid of that. That literally everyone can be afraid. And what does that look like? Like, what does it look like to be this big raging badass who all of a sudden is absolutely terrified of something?
So he runs around the corner, takes a few quick breaths, and's like, okay, now I got to get back in.
Pulls out his little bag.
Right. Like, just keep playing it. Keep whatever it is. Even if you're uncomfortable with it, I mean, obviously, if it's traumatizing because of something that it brings up in your real life, I mean, that's sort of a whole different question. But I mean, as long as you can feel okay with it, like keep going, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. Keep trying to play what's happening.
Really stick your mind in the character, no matter what you're doing. Yeah, because like that's how you get into the world and into the character. Well, because if you're just like, okay, we just had a scenario where we're just fighting literal demons. Do you think any normal character is going to be like, I just saw a demon? Is this the first time I saw a demon? Is this like the 10th time I saw a demon? Who knows? But you should know.
Yeah.
So you gotta be like, okay, this is the first time I saw a demon. I'm losing my flipping mind at this point. I just literally fought monsters from who knows where, how, I can't even conceive. Like, and you know, that really just kind of has to bring into the, like, that's what you got to bring into the fight. It's like, I'm so afraid that I'm about to do anything I can to defeat or run from what I'm fighting.
Well, what I noticed when all of us were sort of sharing our favorite moments is that they were all about immersion into the character. And so I think the opposite is absolutely true, that all of my least favorite moments are when I wasn't able to get that immersion.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Those were the moments I regret.
As a GM, I can tell you that one of the things that I regret the most is not saying yes to my PCs and not saying yes to my players. There's plenty of times that I can think back and I think of like games that haven't gone the way that I expected, or players have been expressed frustration, and I'm like, I'm not saying yes enough. Even if it's something that's a little bit different than what I was planning on, saying yes in that moment and being like, okay, great, that's what you're doing. Now what's the next step? As opposed to, nope, that's a stone wall. You can't do that. It doesn't make sense.
That's actually going to push immersion back too. And we're talking about this continuum of immersion. How immersed you are in your character, I think, is directly correlated to how much enjoyment you get out of the game.
Absolutely.
If you're it's just a, character sheet and dice and pencils, it's meaningless. But if you really get into role playing the character, I mean, to whatever extent that is for the individual, I think the more you can kind of set your own self aside and get into the mind of the character and really immerse yourself in the game, that directly correlates to the enjoyment. So, Kimothee, your point about, saying yes to your players, nothing's going to make a player disengage more than, oh, I want to go look for this. Oh, it's not there. You can't find it anywhere. And not as a story element, but just as a nope, it's not in my world. That creates a level of disengagement, which reduces the enjoyment, I think, for everybody. So you're right. The more you can say yes and engage your players, and the more as a player you can suspend your disbelief and kind of just roll with the punches, I think that's going to dramatically improve the enjoyment, everyone's enjoyment of the game.
And it's to Nate's point as well. It's not just yes, it's yes and.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah.
Exactly. It's always yes, and here's maybe the next roadblock, or here's how it's a little bit different, or something like that, to give you an opportunity also.
Or no, but.
Right.
No, but there's,
right,
something going on.
I still like yes and instead.
Well, I mean, sometimes it. What am I trying to say? Sometimes you end up in situations where two different players want things that are so wildly different that you can't say yes to both of them.
Sure.
But as a general rule, I think it helps to sort of go into the situation trying to say yes as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that I'm enough of a numbers cruncher, I guess, that I enjoy the sort of numerical aspect of combat and some of the other things. And even honestly, to go back to Kimothee's grown much earlier, I enjoy sometimes getting a chance to surprise the DM, maybe with a spell combo or an ability combo, or just pulling something together that is unexpectedly successful.
I don't mind unexpectedly successful. I just don't appreciate when it's intentionally hidden. That's that's the hard part for me.
I get that, and what I will say is that I have played a couple of games where the relationship was very, I'm going to call it numerically adversarial between the players and the DM. That specifically the DM was trying within a reasonable realm to present the characters with the absolute toughest challenge that they could, and the characters were somehow trying to figure out ways to cobble shit together.
That's great.
But in a much more directly sort of adversarial way than normal gaming. And even that, I think, can be fun in limited quantities with people who know up front that is what you are doing.
Yes, exactly.
It depends on your GM, though, I think. Because, I mean, Kimothee despises that, when someone tries to surprise her with a combination of weird rules, and she's like, I don't even know how these two rules work. I need to go look, and now the game is paused, and you have to go do research.
Right.
Where I'm thrilled when that happens. I love it when the players create a surprising combination of abilities or something, and I'm like, wow, that actually works.
Well,
Do you remember the blender?
Which one?
The blender.
The blender. You have to remind me.
From Rise of the Rune Lords, the initial one.
Oh my gosh! Yes, so you guys
Connors.
killed the
Yes.
dragon with attacks of opportunity, chaining into critical hits,
Yes.
chaining
Oh,
into
yes.
attacks of opportunity. And before
Paired
the dragon got an
opportunists.
attack, everyone in the party did like 70 attacks.
Yep.
The Cavalier of the Peacock
Yep.
Order, was it?
Man, that's
Yep.
terrible.
Or the
Stealing
Cockatrice?
glory into
Yeah.
the dual weapon fighting with the, what was it, 17 through 20 critical threat range, 6
it was
attacks
great.
per round,
Yep.
get all these criticals, and the criticals get AOOs, and the AOOs get criticals.
Yep. Yeah, that was a unique experience. I would have to say for myself, probably what I regret most is not starting earlier on doing session zeros or introductory sessions, or discussing what games were going to be about before gameplay actually started. Because I think a lot of games fell apart because there just was no expectation of what the game was going to be. And I think there was so much of what we experienced, especially early on, that was just flying by the seat of our pants. Nobody really knew what they were going to play, how they were going to play, what the story was going to be about. And then all of those things were unanswered questions that just didn't fit well together when the game started.
Yeah.
I do have one question, because everybody in this chat besides myself has DM'd before.
Mm-hmm.
How many games? I have two questions really. How many games have you guys actually DM'd? I just like a number based off all y'all.
What do you define as a game? I mean, does it have to last at least 3 sessions to count?
Yeah. Okay. 3 sessions. You met up. You did actually plot for 3 sessions. That counts as a game. How many would you have said you DM'd?
Honestly, I don't even know
I was
that I
going to
could.
say.
50 to 100, probably.
Yeah. For Nate
Okay.
or for, I'm sure Nate's in that too. It's probably.
No. My number is much lower. Games that have lasted 3 sessions or more, I'd say I've run somewhere like 8 to 12.
Yeah, I was
8 to
going to say
12?
I'm probably on 2 handfuls.
Okay. So you guys have you've clearly we'll just say 10 or more. Pretty much the value here.
Yeah.
You guys are very experienced in your DMing world.
I appreciate
What is
that.
by far the worst thing you've ever dealt with in a gaming session? Doesn't matter if it's character based or like you made a plot story that just failed. Just what is the worst thing you guys have ever had to encounter based off what you built and what the characters built?
Chaotic characters.
I was going to say.
Oh my gosh. Lawful characters.
Lawful characters, chaotic characters. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I think for me, it's the mismanagement of motivation. And that comes back on me again, but also in some of how, like what Dustin was talking about, like how we used to create game, or Rob was talking about in terms of how we used to create games. It was just 4 people that came together. Some of them already had their characters built, and I had no earthly idea like what they wanted out of the game, but I had an idea of what I wanted out of the game. And so my goal at that point is for me to have fun. And at that time I wasn't able to bridge the gap between am I having fun and are my players having fun.
So motivation between you and the players. And then,
Exactly.
Rob, what would you say your worst thing?
I would hands down 100% answer this question by saying that the worst thing in any game, whether I'm a player or a GM, that has to be dealt with are moments where in-game conflicts spill over into out-of-game relationships.
Okay. Yes.
And there's a lot of reasons why that's happened at various times in the past, and sometimes it's been very brief, and sometimes it's lasted for a very long time. But I do think that managing that situation and dealing with the fallout of potential relationships and friendships and scenarios, those kind of things are very, very hard to deal with.
And
It touches on our passions. So those passions, if we really get invested, I mean, that's always the risk of anything with any, if you want to treat tabletop role playing as a relationship that you have with the people in your life that you share this with, that relationship has its own quantifiable value, I think, to a certain degree. So when you have a lot of investment into that, it's like the investment into any other relationship. If there's different ideas of how that needs to take shape, that can certainly create interpersonal conflict. But while that needs to be managed, I don't think it should be avoided, because I think all the great things that can come out of that too, because you're super invested in the game. But like you say, you got to be careful too. Have good communication.
everybody has their own emotions on some things, like everyone feels differently about certain things, which I've always tried to detach my gaming from my personal life or anything from my personal life. So like work, gaming, like anything from like just being like, you're my friend. I consider you a friend. I like you as a person. Mm-hmm. I try to separate that all. Mm-hmm. But of course, how can it not be a little bit personal? Because I've taken some time to build and like attach myself to whatever I'm building. So if like it's just gonna get like, I don't want to be crass.
we had this-
So, but you know what I mean.
Right.
We had this one moment in particular that really stands out for me, and it was years back, where we used to do this thing where if a character didn't show up, or a player didn't show up, their character wouldn't get experience or wouldn't be part of the rewards or whatever, because we thought it was fair. And what we didn't do is we didn't take into account personal feelings about a scenario like this, where the real punishment for not being with your group of friends is that you're not with your group of friends. And then for people to show up and be like, well, your level's behind the rest of the party and you're at a disadvantage and now you're playing in a less favorable position. We didn't really think about how much that would affect a person's enjoyment of the game, just in terms of we were looking at, numeric fairness for whoever showed up or not. And that was it was a terrible mistake that we made. And I would advocate to anyone out there who's running a game is let everybody at the table come with fair specs. If they can't be there because of real life, the punishment is that they don't get to spend time with their friends. Don't make it worse,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Real life it will come in many ways, and you just can't plan that, Life is life.
I was thinking a little bit about your question, Keegan, and it was actually kind of hard for me to kind of put my finger on as a GM what I find the most challenging. And I think this is just more recent because of the existing game. We have so many players in, but it's when casual out of character discussions start to draw too much attention in the room, and then we get distracted from the story and what's going on in the game, and I lose immersion as a GM because I'm trying to keep attentions focused on the game, and I think it's it comes down to the reality that we have a limited attention span, and as the group size gets larger, there's an exponential risk that there's going to be distractions and out of character discussions and stuff while people are waiting for their turn, but that can get very distracting to the overall group, and it can make making progress and creating investment in the game a struggle. So as a GM, when you take a lot of time and effort and energy into building your game and to setting up encounters and dungeons and whatnot, and then for it to get the impression that the players don't really take what you built seriously and they're just having these separate discussions, when it's not really that, I think it's just a matter
not
of
at all. I just want you to know
attention
that.
spans. So that for me is one of the biggest challenges.
That like I understand that completely. Like, people have to do their own thing, right? Like I have to let Jamae pick this lock, and that's going to take a couple turns, So like now I got to sit here and just kind of wait it out, and and that just inevitably leads to me talking to one of my the friends at the table because I just want to chat and hang out. But at the same time, of course, that's taken away from the immersiveness of the actual game, right? Because like now it's like I'm technically out of character, and now I'm not engaged in the story anymore. And that's like, that's because we have so many people in this game that makes it really hard to keep every single person engaged. And that's like one of the struggles where I'm like, yeah, Dustin's been just like trying to juggle this as much as he can. And it's just something that's never going to be perfect. And I completely am on your side when it comes to that, because like I can't
really blame you guys. I mean, I can't, because I would be in the same boat.
Right?
As much as I try to be engaged in the story, you get beyond a certain number of players, and the amount of investment you need is so substantial.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage at one time. I'm like, geez, yeah, I don't know how you manage it. Like, and I try to be engaged all the time, but it's like at some point, it's like I gotta be like, I'm just sitting here for like 3 turns,
I think combat, especially in a huge group, combat's a place where that happens most significantly. Because the rounds can take so long when there's 12
especially
people
when
on the
one
initiative
character
order.
takes 7 turns.
Right. So I think things like that are tricky. The bigger your group gets, I think the more challenging it becomes. All right, let's just do one more question, one more round around everyone else, but let's turn this into our tricks of the trade. Okay, here's what I'm going to propose to you. As each of you, either as a player or as a GM, what is one piece of advice you're going to give to players or GMs out there that we've learned in our many years or in our single year of gaming? And what would that piece of advice be, and who does it apply to?
I'll go first since I'm pretty short here, and I've only had I've been playing since 2020, so it's only been a few years at this point, and it's been kind of.
We don't discriminate on the basis of height, by the way.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be involved in any of these games.
The only advice I give for D&D is really just immerse yourself in the story. Like, that's the only way you're going to really enjoy it. Because, like, gaming is always going to be the same, whatever game you pick. Killing, stats, like, performance-based, that's always going to be the same. But, like, the best part to D&D for me is just immersing yourself in the character. So if you can do that, you're really going to love D&D, which is what I love about D&D.
Awesome.
For me, my suggestion would be to always remember that you're playing with your friends first. That's the most important part. You get together with your friends and you're choosing to do D&D, but you're there to spend time with your friends. It's a collaborative role play that involves everybody working together, whether you agree that lawful characters are the best or not, or whatever the case is. You're there to spend time with your friends. And frankly, for me, you're my chosen family. I choose to spend time with you. I could choose to do anything else. So I'm going to sit at the table and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to enjoy myself. And once you kind of let go of the selfish nature of I want to have as much fun for myself and you have fun with others, I feel that's when the most actual story and role play and fun comes out, because all of a sudden now I'm invested in Nate and Keegan and I want you guys to find success at the same time. And now I get to go along for that ride at the same time. And now together we're telling this story. That's what I love about D&D.
Excellent point, Kimothee.
So can mine be don't game with your friends, game with random strangers only?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, no, seriously though. So I guess my biggest advice, and this applies equally to players and GMs, is I think like anything else in life, you get out of something exactly what you put into it. And energy is, the more energy you invest into the game, the more you're going to withdraw enjoyment and fun and wonderful stories out of. So, and that comes in a lot of different ways. If you're a player and you're building a character, take the time to really think, why would my character make these decisions? What's happened? Get a good backstory, not just the stats, but also the story. I mean, to the point of get a picture, paint a mini. I mean, whatever you can do to really, really embrace the character you're going to be playing. Mm-hmm. And then while you are playing, get in that mindset, focus 100% on the story that is being told, that you're a part of the telling of, and really invest in the game and focus on the action of what's going on and take good notes. And, the more energy you spend there, you're going to enjoy a lot more. And the same thing is true as a GM. The more time you spend prepping a game, and I mean before the game starts, in between sessions, the notes that you take, the NPCs, you take the time to say, okay, this NPC has this voice and this unique trait, and they have this goal. Okay, now the next time the party meets them, they, can continue that, and you have more continuity from game to game. That level of investment on the GM and the players' parts together, I think, creates a game that people enjoy and becomes their favorite hobby and the favorite thing they like to do. But you can also approach it from a totally casual perspective, as long as that's the group you're doing, as long as you don't expect to get that deep, engaging story out of it. If you want to just hang out with your friends, you can do that. But I don't think you're going to get the same level of really amazing stories and adventures if you don't put the energy and effort into getting that.
Yeah, I agree.
This might sound a little bit weird. Theatrically, when you're looking at sort of a play on stage or even in a movie, it's not necessarily the action itself that sort of sets the mood and the tone, if you will. It's everybody's reaction to whatever the action was. So it's not somebody lighting the bomb off. It's everybody around them reacting to the action of the bomb being lit. Mm-hmm. And I think the same holds true for characters. So I think if you're being a good player at the table, you're not 100% focused on how cool your actions are. Mm-hmm. You're going to be focused on reacting to how cool everybody else's moments are. And that builds around the table as everybody gets into celebrating everybody else. Mm-hmm. That I think that's where you find that sort of sweet spot at the table. That's how you encourage engagement. That's how you encourage reaction at the table, I think.
I love that.
That is a very good
Love it.
point.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you guys took all the good ones and then left me to go last. I would just say this. It's something I've been thinking a lot about lately because I know it's a lot of where my distractions come from as a player, which is what I've been doing mostly recently, is try to eliminate distractions that are out of game. I am really, really fond of going back to games that are real dice, paper, pencil, and keep the technology away for just a few hours. And because that has been a serious place of distraction for myself, and I see it also around the table. So I think that finding ways to eliminate those things that are going to distract you from being able to be immersed in the story is going to make a huge impact on how much you can actually get into and enjoy a story. All right.
Very true.
Awesome. Guys, 20 episodes.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh, and thank you, psyclithids, for joining us on this adventure. It has been awesome, so much fun, and we hope to continue making great episodes and providing more content and growing this show with your help and all of your support. So please leave us a rating, help us grow a little bit more on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you have any ideas, suggestions, you want to collaborate, send me an email. The address is all one word, dungeonsdragonpsychology@gmail.com. And as always, please check out my book, Session Zero, the DMG to Writing Great Campaigns in Any System. It's available on Amazon. There's a link in the show notes. And please keep listening. We love having you here, and I love seeing the show grow. I'm just so psyched about, especially the last few weeks, how much it has grown and how involved I've been able to get with the community of other content creators out there. You guys are all amazing. I love you, my psyclithids, and I appreciate you, and we'll see you next session.